We've come a long way from death in games simply being a punishment to send you back to the beginning and encourage you to push more quarters into the arcade machine. But even today, a lot of developers continue to implement dying as an inconvenience that can always be avoided if you're good enough. However, there are some releases over the years, often the most morbid ones, that have actually made death a central part of the experience. Rather than throwing it in as an obstacle to overcome, developers have instead purposefully killed players to send a message, whether that's to communicate certain game mechanics or deliver a powerful story moment. Sure, main characters in games die in cutscenes all the time, but it's a different thing entirely when you're given the illusion of having a fighting chance, only for the hammer to come crashing down, murdering you anyway. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com. The games I'm spoiling the pants off today are down in the description, and without further ado, these are 9 video games that kill you no matter what. Number 9. Silent Hill. Unlike its more action-oriented counterpart Resident Evil, Silent Hill has never really been about blistering combat or taking out huge monsters with rocket launchers. To drive this point home from the get-go, the original game actually makes you defenseless for a good chunk of the opening. Throwing you straight into the depths of Silent Hill itself, the introductory minutes are spent exploring and following increasingly ominous noises, before you get stranded in a dead end. Cornered and with nowhere to run and nothing to fight back with, you're quickly surrounded by monsters and shanked to death. Thankfully, it only turns out to be a nightmare, and foreshadowing of horrifying events to come, but it certainly leaves a lasting impression and sets the tone perfectly. The opening fake-out is something that would not only be repeated in this series, but just about every survival horror game going forward, but it was undoubtedly the most effective in this seminal title. Number 8. Outlast. It's not an understatement to say that players go through hell while trying to escape the Mount Massive Asylum in Outlast. Losing fingers, being chased by naked serial killers, and suffering through a decent serving of knob terror, the main character somehow manages to avoid being killed by these seemingly insurmountable threats. After you make it through this and take care of the secret laboratory that lurks beneath the institution, the game makes it look like it's rewarding you with a smooth ride to the exit. Of course, this wouldn't be a horror game without a final twist, and while you're limping to freedom, you're gunned down by the first sane humans you've seen in hours as you reach the final door. It's not a very satisfying ending, especially after the sheer amount of body horror your character suffers through in his bloody journey. But it's made even more frustrating because the game teases you with the chance of a happy ending just before that final door opens. Number 7. The Walking Dead Season 1. Although Telltale's The Walking Dead is all about choice, there's no actual way to save main character Lee from becoming zombie chow before the game is out, even if the developers give the illusion that there might be. The first ray of hope comes when he's bitten in the penultimate episode, as you have the option to amputate his arm and potentially ward off the infection. Of course, that doesn't actually help in the long run, as Lee's mortally wounded anyway by the time the final episode is over. Consequently, no matter what you do from the decision to self-amputate onwards, in the end your choices ultimately have no bearing on the character's fate. That might be for the best though, as Lee's demise and his final goodbye to Clementine is one of the most heartbreaking scenes in gaming history. Number 6. Hellblade: SENUA'S Sacrifice. In the final hours of Hellblade, you can find yourself up against seemingly never-ending streams of monsters that take absolutely ages to beat, which means that when you get to the finale and you're bombarded with more enemies than ever before, you're sure you can beat them. However, while Ninja Theory's ambitious title is all about overcoming insurmountable odds, the final level features one battle that you have no way of beating. You can continue to fight for as long as your heart's content, of course, but after constantly throwing yourself at a brick wall and scraping through by the skin of your teeth, you'll eventually slip up and get killed. It's only then, though, that you realize you had no chance of actually beating the odds at all, and had to die to finish the game, ending it on a rather crushing note. Number 5. Nier Automata. The second playthrough of Nier Automata ends on the revelation that 2B is being corrupted by a deadly virus, as you regain control of her and attempt to get to safety. In a ridiculously frustrating mission, your controls are constantly fighting against you, and the time you have to reach your destination slowly ticks down. You're forced to slog your way to the other end of the open world, barely able to run never mind fight, in a sequence that lasts far too long. Still, it's as lengthy as it is to communicate the character's struggle, which makes it all the more tragic when your last stand ends with 2B dying anyway. After spending 2 playthroughs bonding with the character and seeing other robots battle through this state before, it's a genuinely powerful surprise when the section ends with 2B actually succumbing to the virus, even if it makes all your efforts to save her seem worthless. Number 4. Halo Reach. By its very nature of being a prequel, you always knew how Halo Reach was going to end. The demise of your team was pretty much guaranteed from the moment the game's logo flashed on screen, but it didn't make the eventual realization that all was lost hit home any less. The final mission of Reach offers you a last stand after the rest of your squad has been killed, and makes it pretty clear that there's no way you're going to make it out the other end alive. That doesn't mean you can't go down swinging though, and you're able to spend your final moments trying to take out as many Covenant soldiers as you possibly can. It's obviously all futile though, and despite your action movie heroics, you'll still eventually be torn to shreds by blaster fire. At least your final moments make it clear that your sacrifice was worth it in the long run though. Number 3. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. While a good chunk of Call of Duty games have killed plenty of characters over the years, it was a genuine shock when Infinity Ward pulled the rug from under players and murdered a protagonist for the first time in Call of Duty 4. In an adrenaline-pumping escape during the USMC campaign, you jump on board a helicopter, save your friends and ride to safety, only to watch as a nuclear explosion knocks your craft out the air. Waking up to the decimated city, you continue to play as your character as you stand up, shamble forwards a few feet while taking in the destruction, only to then succumb to your wounds. Though it might be a bit daft to think you could survive a f***ing nuclear explosion, the brief control awarded to you, combined with the fact that this is a COD game after all, where players brush off ridiculous injuries all the time, gives you hope that you might actually get rescued. An optimistic glimmer which is extinguished completely 30 seconds later. Number 2. Red Dead Redemption. After a chill final hour tending to your farm, herding cattle, and spending some quality time with your wife and kid at the end of Red Dead Redemption, the sheriff's department who hired John to take down his former gang shows up out of nowhere to ambush him in a barn. With no choice but to come out, you burst out of the hideout and enter the slow-mo Deadeye mode, but you quickly realize that you have no chance of targeting all the goons before the timer runs out. Instead, it becomes a situation where you know you're completely outgunned and are almost certainly going to die, so you might as well take as many of your would-be killers down with you. It doesn't stop you being riddled with bullets, of course, but while the story ends here, the game isn't technically over. Instead, you can pick up as an older version of John's son and take your sweet revenge whenever you want. Number 1. Fallout 3. After it released, Fallout 3 became notorious for its decision to kill off the player in the final story mission, forcing the protagonist to enter a radioactive chamber in order to install the water purifying chip. Once the quest is finished, your character is dead, and you're locked out of further exploring the game's post-apocalyptic wasteland. The thing is, the decision to kill off the player is even more egregious because there are viable alternatives that could have resulted in you not needing to sacrifice yourself. For instance, your trusty super mutant pal Forks could have easily installed the chip for you, considering he's immune to radiation and all. However, if you ask him to go in for you, he treats you to some spiel about how it's your destiny and that he doesn't want to rob you of it. I thought we were friends, man. It was a decision so hated that eventually Bethesda actually released a piece of DLC, Broken Steel, that revealed the player didn't die at all, but was simply put into a coma. That was only available if you coughed up extra cash though, and for the majority of players, death in this final mission was inescapable. So that's our list. Let me know if there are any games I missed in the comments down below, and while you're there, don't forget to give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for even more fire content like this. I've been Josh, and I'll see you soon.
Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Aren't you a star? Don't forget to subscribe below, and also the people who made this video, they're right here, so go and follow them and give them some love. If you want to see more content, there's probably some stuff flowing up above my head. Why not check it out? It could be fun. I'm not your dad.